So Victor Oladipo is unfortunately going to be out for the season with a ruptured quad, I believe the injury was. You never want to hear that. It's never a fun thing, but of course, this is the NBA, and you do have to deal with what you're given, and the Pacers, while they have been given a pretty crappy hand here, there is certainly a way to go about this. So the first question is, where are the Pacers going to end up for the rest of this season? Well, they're not going to have their main source of offense. Granted, they didn't have him for a decent stretch this year, and they were still winning games. Some of that because they gave the ball to Miles Turner a lot more. I believe he averaged around 16 points a game throughout a decent stretch of this season, which is the most he's ever averaged. He was shooting about 2 to 3 threes a game, and I think we're going to expect more of that. The one thing we could learn through this is how good Miles Turner really is on offense, because we've been expecting him to make these jumps that have not happened, and now he may be forced to just shoot the ball more, so that could be a thing. Now, of course, the Darren Collisons and Bogdanoviches and Corey Josephs of the world are not as talented as Victor Oladipo, and they cannot draw as much attention from the defense. But even so, I do think we could expect Miles Turner to have potentially his best offensive stretch of games ever. So there is that, and then we would hope that that could perhaps instill a little bit more confidence in him, and perhaps the Pacers as a whole, coaching staff and all that, to give him the ball more often. And then when Oladipo does come back, then we have a real 1-2 punch offensively, which, you know, before this and really the entire time, it's been Oladipo and everybody else. So that is one thing, I guess. As far as, can the Pacers make the playoffs still? I mean, probably. Like, they're 9.5 games up on the 8th seeded Heat. So even if they went on a bit of a nosedive, which I don't really think they're going to do, because they play hard, they play the right way, they got a lot of veterans, and they're just a real basketball team, I guess, if that means anything. So I don't think they're going to be horrible. Sure, it's going to be tougher, and they might end up being towards the bottom of the league in offense by the time the year is over, but I could picture them being really good on defense and just figuring out a way to win. Now, of course, it's not as exciting as being the 3rd seed at the moment and potentially being a second round and maybe even conference finals team, depending on, well, I mean, who knows once the playoffs come around, right? But even so, there is that for you. They have a lot of expiring contracts, and we would think before this, well, they could be interested in someone like Mike Conley, Tim Hardaway Jr. I mentioned the idea of Taurean Prince, another scorer who can help out Oladipo. And to be fair, they could still get in on some of those moves. I mean, they still have all of their assets. But losing Oladipo and then getting a guy to come in here, sure, that could still have value for you moving forward. So if you have an opportunity to get a guy, then you perhaps still want to jump on it. But the immediate outcome would not be as good because, of course, then it would be whoever you just traded for potentially being the top offensive option, depending on who it is. I mean, if they traded for Taurean Prince, then Miles Turner should still be shooting over him. So there is that. I think the other thing this could allow them to do is experiment a little bit more, because before this, they were trying to be as good as possible, which doesn't allow you to try things out like the Miles Turner-Sabonis lineup. Sure, those two have played together this year, but it's not that many minutes. A lot of the time, they just, one plays center, then one goes out, the other one comes in. You could try them together more, and you hope that that works, because, of course, if your second and third best players can't play together, then you're not maximizing your team, and you'd probably be forced to trade one. But now, perhaps, if you're content with being a little worse for the sake of the future, then you could try that out. I mean, my gut feeling is defensively they can probably make it work. I mean, I mentioned in the video when I talked about this before that Miles Turner would be defending power forwards. That's not how it should be. Miles Turner should be defending around the rim, and Sabonis should be the one defending fours. Maybe he can do it. I mean, he was asked to do it in OKC. Of course, we learned from his time in OKC and now his time in Indiana, he should not be a power forward. He's meant to be a center. But even so, perhaps he can manage it for a few games or a few minutes here and there, depending on the opponent and all that stuff. And if you can make that work, then that will be, of course, better for you in the long term. So I think that's what the Pacers have to be about now. They have to be content with losing a little bit more. I mean, don't trade vets and don't start like playing all your young guys and just go into the tank. I don't think you need to do that if you're this team, especially because this is not a very high profit team. I mean, they were 22nd last year in revenue. If you look at their attendance, they've been towards the bottom of the league every year except for the 1 year where they won the 56 games and they went to the conference finals against Miami. And even then, they were only 15th. And I know part of that is, of course, like how big your arena is and all that, but still, I feel like this is a team where if you decide to tank, you might not make any money. So I don't think you really need to go that route. Now, I guess we can talk about Oladipo now some more. One thing with him, it's been said a million times, he is very hardworking. The way that he has just gotten better throughout his career. I mean, we saw what he was in that last year with OKC, or the only year with OKC, I should say. And it seemed like the book was pretty much written on him, which is he was an average NBA player, perhaps a little disappointing. Shows up in Indiana and he becomes one of the top, 20 guys in the league or so. A little worse this season, but still not too far away from that ranking, I guess. So we assume that he's going to work his ass off to get back. Tony Parker had this injury and he was back in about 7 or 8 months, I believe. And he was a lot older. So there's a chance Oladipo could bounce back, perhaps even better than Tony did. I will admit, I'm not super well versed on injuries and expectations. I can only go by what I'm seeing on the internet. But my gut feeling is maybe by the 30th or 40th game of next season, Victor Oladipo will be all the way back, because we assume minutes restrictions, not playing back-to-backs, that kind of thing, might be in the cards, which of course is good because you want to keep this guy for as long as you can, so that's all that stuff. The Aaron Holidays, the TJ Leafs of the world can probably get some more minutes. I don't know much about those guys, so there's that for you. Yeah, I mean, this does suck, of course, because this season was going so well for Indiana, but I don't think this is the type of thing that's going to set them back super long term. I mean, I guess it is possible that it could hurt the chances of them getting a free agent, but I didn't think they would have a chance at a big free agent anyway, just because they're the Indiana Pacers, so there is that. Yeah, it sucks, it does, but I think they can recover from this.